Welcome to Parenting How Not to Suck. I want you to know you pick this button, you absolutely do not suck. Parenting is the hardest job in the world, and there is no such thing as a perfect parent. But because you're here, because you're interested, because you want to make your life with your children more connected and easy and flowing and fun, that's what we're here to help you with. My name is Natalie McCabe, former teacher for 30 years and now a parent coach. I'm so excited to have with me today Ms. Dana Baker-Williams. Dana is a dedicated ADHD and anxiety coach who specializes in supporting parents, teens, and young adults. As a mother to a daughter with ADHD, anxiety, working memory challenges, and depression, she understands firsthand the overwhelm and challenges that come with raising children who have unique needs. Through one-on-one coaching sessions and small group coaching, Dana equips parents with the tools and guidance they need to better understand their child's challenges, parent more effectively, and foster meaningful connections. Her coaching empowers parents to support their children in advocating for themselves, building resilience, managing emotions, and boosting confidence. As a result, families experience stronger bonds, more confident parenting, and a calmer, happier home environment, which is something we are all striving for. Thank you for being here, Dana.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Your bio, see, I told you this had happened, tricks things in my brain. With anxiety, it's such a huge issue in today's day and age, and for the adults as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, it's massive, whether you're neurotypical or you have attention deficit disorder.
Yeah.
Anxiety is this underlying flow right now in the world. And what's your definition of that, and how is that affecting our families today?
Yeah, it's a great point that anxiety is at an all-time high right now. And so anxiety is basically your body's reaction or your mind's reaction, stirs the body, that it's got a perceived threat. So something is wrong, something's not right, something's an alarm system. And we all get that, and we need that, right? That keeps us safe
Yeah.
from certain things. It keeps us from doing stupid things sometimes, which is awesome. It's when anxiety becomes constant or frequent or intense, when it goes beyond just maybe little worries and affects the actual daily life of our kids or ourselves, then that's like an anxiety disorder. That's when you really want to pay attention and get some help.
Yeah.
So you're not always in fight or flight, and you're not always up here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that connection between our bodies and our minds
Yeah.
is everybody's talking about mental health and mental wellness and notice your thoughts, but can
Notice
you
your
speak?
body, right?
Notice
Like,
your
where does
body.
it show up for you? It's one of the things I do talk to clients about. It's like the physical symptoms are not always clear that it's anxiety, right? I have headaches. My daughter had stomach aches, trouble falling asleep, irritability, fatigue. All those things are actually can be signs of anxiety. So you have to tune in both to your child, if you're a parent, or yourself, if you're feeling it, to understand where it's stemming, where in your body is it, so that you can take that moment to calm it down, right? It's the nervous
Yeah.
system, and the nervous system is just firing away. And what we want to do is quiet it back down again. And tuning into both your thoughts, also the body can be really helpful with that, especially as a parent. If you're looking for clues on your kid can't say, I'm anxious,
That's right.
depending on their age. So then they've got that irritability and the clinginess or what if questions. That was a big one for my daughter. Avoiding things that you'd normally want to do.
Yeah.
Avoiding school definitely is the whole school refusal, as it's being called, is really not a refusal. It's anxiety. It's
Yeah.
just stopping them. But even stopping kids from going to a sleepover or one of their best friends' house, like that can also be a sign. And it was sort of those things that if you to look for them, and they just go, it's good to tune into that. The
Yeah.
problem is ADHD and anxiety have a lot of similar symptoms.
Yes.
So things like not being able to focus. Yes, everybody thinks ADHD, but also anxiety has that too. Memory lapses, anxiety does that.
Yeah.
Struggling with tasks, perfectionism, all of those. So it's a hard thing to know. And I am saying that because as parents, we often feel guilty, right? We're late to the party.
Yeah.
It's late to the party. And you feel really bad once you figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm saying it to say, hey, it's not that easy to figure out, and you have to know what to look
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, absolutely. And take the time and have those conversations about
Yeah.
the body connecting with the mind, because don't you find some people have that are diagnosed with anxiety disorders will have a random anxiety attack without really even noticing a thought that triggered,
Yes, a
right?
lot of times they
So
don't know what the trigger is. Mhm.
yeah. So
Yeah.
is that because like they're burying their mind is blocking those thoughts out, or
It could be that. It's also, I think, sometimes that somebody with anxiety or ADHD, and they do go together, has a very busy mind. There is a
Mm,
lot going on in there. It's not one thing that you're anxious about. It's
yeah.
all the things. And it can be that you feel the anxiety and you have an anxious thought, but it can also just be that you feel the anxiety and you don't really have one trigger. It's just you are anxious. Like you wake up sometimes in the morning and you don't know why you wake up anxious,
Yeah.
but you can just wake up being like, oh, I'm already feeling tight.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know what that was. So you have to think back. And one of the things I have clients do is try to keep a little diary sometimes. So
Mm,
take a week to write down when it happens and look for patterns. So
yes.
if you find that your daughter is not wanting to go somewhere, when does that happen? Does a meltdown happen at noon or 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock when they're tired or hungry? But you also want to know that it's not always that. So you want to keep your eye on the patterns and see if you can find one. And then
Yeah.
that take that string and come up with triggers.
Yeah, that's so important to be to keep track and be aware of when because there's so many other factors, not just ADHD and anxiety, right? The
Yeah,
like
no,
you
it's
said,
just
the
life and
sleep,
there's
the hunger.
politics and there's
Yeah,
everything.
that's everything, right? So
There's
it's a great
school.
strategy. Oh yeah, school and friends and what's going on with the friends of the friends and
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I wanna jump to next, your story, what you went through this yourself as an adult and with your daughter, and you talked about how your daughter had was masking some of those behaviors, and I think that happens a lot of times with kids.
Masking is huge with our kids. And masking is when you're trying to pretend almost
Yeah.
that you're like everyone else. You're
Mhm.
trying to fit into that square hole or the circle hole or whatever. And you're trying to not be noticeable as being
Mm.
different. So in school, that means, for instance, my daughter with and girls in general who
Yeah.
go unnoticed a lot of the time for diagnoses because we're brought up to be quieter, to be more polite. Talking in general, obviously,
Yeah.
but in general, society still has a different expectation of how girls are going to act.
Mhm.
So you're holding it together all day in school, right? You're trying to be normal with your friends on the recess. So you're constantly watching and listening. What are you supposed to be talking about? What are you supposed to be doing? And if you're someone who doesn't like to run and the kids are running around on the playground, that's hard, but you're having to try to keep up because you want to fit in. You
Yes.
want to fit in at any age. You want to fit in as an adult. You go to dinner parties or places you don't know someone and you have anxiety. You want to fit in as a teenager. It's hard.
It is.
And it takes a lot of effort if you have these other things that make you a little more unique and that you have a
Mhm.
more unique brain. So that takes a lot of effort. And by the time they get home from school, as a lot of parents will say, like, how
Yeah.
come you're so good at school? And then they just collapse on you and vomit up all the emotion.
Yeah.
And that's because they've held it together all day and they've listened and they've tried so hard to be good or to be normal, quote, or any of those things.
Yeah.
And I think masking, it works.
Yeah.
And that's the good and that's the bad, right? Because you
Yeah.
don't want to spend your life masking and you internalize that our kids are feeling bad, right? If you think you have to
Yeah.
always be something else that you're not, what's that saying to you? It's saying
Exactly.
you're not good enough the way you are, or
Mm.
you're weird, or you're odd, or you're not normal. Um,
Yeah.
you're not as smart, you're not as capable. And they're getting all that negativity anyway because they are different. So maybe they're not sitting still in school. Maybe they're doing things, getting up and fidgeting. Yeah, who knows? But it's a hard thing for our kids.
Yeah. Yeah, it
And
is. And then we have to look at that pressure that's on them as parents to step back and understand that they're really just trying to hold it together here, to
Yeah,
try to feel good, to try to fit in, especially adolescents. It's all about trying to fit in, right?
absolutely. How do I not become noticeable? How do I be
Yes.
part of the crowd and what people like me? And kids with anxiety and ADHD, any kids, but on a higher level, they have friendship trouble.
Yeah.
They get dropped. Because they aren't the same.
Hmm.
And if they have a working memory issue, they may not bother to ask you, how was your weekend or how was your vacation? Or remember a happy birthday or respond to a text, right? So those are
Yeah.
things that you don't think about, but that makes a difference to a friendship.
Yeah, absolutely. Responding to the social cues.
Reading the social cues and being able to read the
Yeah.
room, which
Yeah.
not something they can all do.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's so pervasive, and that's why I feel like it's so important for us to talk about this, that this needs to become more normalized. We are all different. We all should not be trying to fit
Right?
in. We just need to find those few people where we belong, right?
Yes.
Where
And
we
that
can
is one thing with both ADHD and anxiety, again, pretty big difference in that our kids tend to have one or two really close friends as opposed to a big group of friends.
Mhm.
And why I'm bringing that up is because for parents, I will say, I want, speak for myself, I
Yep.
wanted my daughter to have a lot of friends
Yeah.
and have fun and be all these things. And I realized later, and I see now with my clients, that a lot of the time they're okay with it. It's
Yeah.
easier for them to she didn't want to deal with a whole mess of people.
Yeah.
And even really little, she didn't want play dates that were groups, or
Mhm.
she really liked one-on-one, or they had a small group of 4. But
Yeah.
yeah, I say that because I know that I wanted something that in the end, my daughter actually didn't really want.
Yeah.
And I feel bad about that because you push
Yeah.
because you're encouraging, right? And you
Yes, and
want
it's
them to
all
have all
coming
these
from
things.
love. Yeah, it's all coming from love.
You gotta listen to your kids.
That's right. That's right. Whatever makes them happy, it should make us happy too, right?
Yeah, because that
Eh,
was just pressure that I was putting on probably,
yeah. Yeah,
you
well,
know?
we all do it, Dana, come on. Like I said at the beginning, there's no such thing as a perfect parent,
There is
right?
not.
It just doesn't exist. We're all just here trying to help each other muddle through. And I guess following from that feeling of belonging, we talked about in our pre-meeting about family dynamics, right?
Mhm.
And why are they so important? And I think that leads to that part of belonging, because if you're going to belong anywhere, your first
Right,
place is in your
right.
family.
In your family, and you want to have a family as the parent, you want this family harmony, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got a picture in your mind of the family you wanna bring up,
Yeah.
and with diagnoses of whatever sort, that shifts, right? What you're gonna end up with shifts, and that family dynamic can be hard with whether it's illnesses, ADHD, anxiety, whatever those diagnoses are, can make it hard because you've got and parenting is hard enough, right? Parenting is
Yeah.
hard. Let's just
Yeah.
start there. Parenting
Exactly.
is hard,
Yeah.
period. And you're not always on the same page. Again, whether you have diagnosis or not, you're not always on the same page with your partner.
Yeah.
And so that in itself is a great place to start because if you're parenting differently, then you're ending up with conflict or a little bit of chaos because you're not either you're fighting and disagreeing
Yeah.
or you're expecting different things from your kids or you go about it in a different way. And that can make it hard for the kids, both
Mm-hmm.
different expectations, different reactions, right? And siblings, if one is neurotypical and one is neurodivergent, then that can also be super, super hard.
Yeah.
So hard. And I think that's something we don't really think about a lot
Mm-hmm.
is how if you have a kid who needs extra time, extra different parenting, whatever those things are, you're spending a lot of your time and energy there.
Yeah.
And you have a neurotypical who just goes along.
Yeah.
And so we are not giving as much time or energy to the neurotypical. And then there's this added blow up in the family, especially if it's like ADHD or anxiety where it meltdowns,
Yeah.
right? So there's crying, there's screaming because the one parent's yelling at the kid and your kid the neurotypical kid runs to the car and just goes, "Bleh."
Yeah.
How do I get out of here? And sometimes they don't want to have friends over because they don't know when a meltdown's going to occur, and it's walking on eggshells. And
Yeah.
that's hard.
Yeah.
Um,
None of us really
so
want that for our family, right?
none of
So
us want that. So
how
you
do
want to
you
have safety place. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna ask you, so how do you help families that are going through all of those things? And whether your child has, like we said, ADHD or anxiety or not,
We're
there's
not.
always times like those times of chaos in our homes. And so how do you help parents take notice of all of those family dynamics, and what are some things they can do to work through those?
Yeah. Um, I think the place you want to start is recognizing it, right?
Yeah.
At some point, when your family's blowing up behind you and you're trying to run
Yeah.
out the door and one of you's screaming and one is trying to grab shoes. Okay, let's notice that maybe we aren't connecting here. Maybe
Yeah.
mom and dad or mom and mom or whatever are not on the same page. So
Mhm.
I start there because I think that's really important. And sometimes the parents know different information, right? And again, men in general, a lot of times for me and my clients, know less about whatever that diagnosis is, if there's a diagnosis, or are
Yeah.
just less up on parenting, right? And so I try to get them on the same page. I try to teach a little bit about what it is, or we just work on their marriage dynamic or their partnership dynamic and
Yeah.
talk about, okay, where are you similar and where are you not? And let's come up with some family rules or processes that we want to follow so that you can make it a safe place for your kids and they're not feeling,
Yeah.
yeah, basically. And then how do you model that behavior where you are getting along? And if you disagree, how do you model that in front of kids? Because
Very important.
you don't want your kids to grow up thinking mom and dad love each other and they always fight. So I guess that's what
Yeah.
love is, right?
No.
You want some calm. You're always going to have some fights, but you also want some calm.
Mm.
Routines and structure for the kids, so important. And it's so important because a routine and structure takes that anxiety away. You're not constantly thinking, what do I have to do next?
Yeah.
You're just doing it. So if the kids are young, lists in their bedroom, the bathroom, the kitchen, say, hey, here you put on your clothes. Here you go to the bathroom and wash your hands. Here you go get your backpack. Put a
Yeah.
list of what goes in the backpack, things like that. It's really helpful.
Yeah, because
Um,
it's predictable. That gives that sense of safety is what
it's
routines do.
predictable. Once it's a routine, they don't have to be nagged. We don't have to nag them anymore,
Yeah.
which is great because we as parents don't want to be that person always repeating
No.
ourselves. It goes, it's
Mhm.
horrible. And they do not always want to be repeated to. So
Exactly. And it builds that sense of autonomy, which when you give children autonomy, it builds naturally their self-confidence that, hey, I can do this myself. I don't need my
confidence,
handheld.
resilience,
Mhm.
perseverance, because they just keep trying day after day. And knowing things ahead of time. If your kid knows your schedule for the day, what they're doing after school, things like that. That's also really helpful so
Yeah.
that they just know what to expect. And the other thing I really think is important is consistency, although obviously, for instance,
Mm.
holidays, right? We're not consistent in the holidays because
Yeah.
we're seeing friends and family and all those things. But when we can be being consistent with what time, when you get home, what time are you doing homework? How are you doing homework? Where are you doing homework? You can get the kids buy-in, the teenagers buy-in, because they're not going to do it if it doesn't come from them as well.
That's right.
So we want to always keep that. And really the connection part. I think it's really important if we can remember to it's about the connection.
Yes.
So connect before the conflict, right? To try to focus on that connection and keep that going because long term, that's what it is. You have a relationship with your kids
Yeah.
and you want a lifelong relationship with your kids.
Absolutely.
And so
Yeah.
how can you approach them even if there are mistakes made? Okay, great. Learning opportunity. Not one of us doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
So that's really a good thing to remember. And have fewer house rules, but have set consequences so that you don't have to get mad every time. It's
Yeah.
just, oh, you did this. Here's the
This is what
here's
happened.
the parking ticket.
Yeah.
Without getting it doesn't have to be all emotional.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think
Yeah.
that those are some really good tips for keeping it a little calmer in the house.
Yeah, absolutely. The connection piece, it really, I think everything comes down to connection
It
because with
does.
connection, you're going to get cooperation.
And
And yeah, A lot of times as parents, we're looking for compliance, right? And when I did it as the teenagers, half of my discussions or questions I'd ask my teenagers are, did you do the dishes? Can you take the garbage down? This was our interaction. And that's not connection.
No, it's
There's no
not.
connection. But if you make the connection first,
Yeah.
then due to that connection, you'll have cooperation. Oh, I see the garbage is overflowing. Maybe I'll just take it down. That'd help mom. Right? So
Exactly.
it
And
really is the first thing.
yeah. Oh, and one thing I will also mention that I say all the time is validate their emotions. You don't have to agree with them,
Mm.
but recognizing them, saying, I can see you're really frustrated, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that, where you are coming at it from a place of, I see you
Yes.
and I see that you're mad, and that's okay. We all have the emotions, so acknowledge them.
Yeah.
And you can say, you think this, my brain goes over here. I have a different thought.
Yeah.
And just try to make it not so much me versus you, just, oh, okay, we're coming at this from different places. Let's get curious about that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And getting curious about those feelings. And I think parents too, we can model when we're going through those strong emotions.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably super powerful to model and say, listen, I'm having a rough day. Didn't sleep well last night, spilled my coffee all over myself at work. And
Right.
kids love that. As a teacher for 30 years, Data, when I'm telling a story about myself, whether it be good, bad, or ugly, doesn't matter. You can hear a pin drop in my classroom because
Yep.
they are just on pins and needles wanting to know. And our
That's so good.
kids idolize their parents just as they a lot of times will idolize a teacher when they're young, right? So the modeling piece is just so powerful.
Yeah, modeling is really important, and they're always watching, and even if they're not always listening. So the whole monkey see, monkey do versus
Yeah.
do as I say, not as I do, it doesn't really work anymore. It's okay. It is modeling, and you know what? Repair. If you blow up and yell at someone, which we're all going
As
to
we
do,
all
right?
do.
We all
Yep.
yell at our kids sometimes,
Absolutely. Yep.
or our partners or whatever. I'm sorry. I could have handled that better.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a big deal, but to recognize or to give them a heads up, hey, I'm cranky today.
Yeah.
That can be really helpful for their kids, because then they're not having to be hyper vigilant and trying to figure out, is my mom safe today? Is my mom angry today? I want them to have that heads up of where you stand that day.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's just being human. That's being vulnerable. That's being and that all adds to connection.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I love that. I love that. In today's day and age, there's all kinds of stigmas of mental health.
Yeah, our stigmas.
Yeah, and because it is a big topic now. Everybody's talking about it, and which is great. Don't get me
Yep.
wrong, which is absolutely great. But what are some of those stigmas that are going around that we want to try to myth bust?
I think it's interesting because mental health is talked about more now by far than from like when my kids were little. And ADHD still has a stigma. People being different still has a stigma.
Yes.
And it's interesting because so one of the things we hear a lot is this: everyone has a little ADHD, right? You hear that all the time. I'm sorry, it makes me crawl out of my
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, not everybody has ADHD. Not everybody has anxiety. They feel anxiety. They forget things. Yes.
Yes.
Different.
Definitely.
And medication. Medication has a stigma. And I know it still has it because parents are still either uncertain whether they want to give medication, but there's also that don't tell your friends.
Yeah.
And I know with my daughter growing up, I caught my husband and I were talking about something, and my husband said to my daughter, you don't have to tell them. And or you can hide your medication or something. And she was like, why would I do that? I was like, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But I caught that made me stop and go, oh, are we going to perpetuate this stigma? Because you don't
Yeah.
think about it at the time you're trying to protect your child.
Yes.
And by having to protect your child, you are continuing that stigma.
Exactly.
So you do need to catch yourself on that. And I think that's important. And I think talking about it and being open about it and saying, yes, millions of people have ADHD. So it is not a few people. It's not that you grow out of it. It's not that only boys have it. Like, none of that.
It's true.
Adults do have it. And kids, girls, boys, all genders have it. So I think that's important to get through to people and say it's not a mental health disorder. It is a brain difference. Your
Yeah.
brain is just different than someone else's brain. And,
That's
and
right.
that's so true anyway. We are all so different, whether we have anything or not. We're different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot the same because we have the same needs and the same wants. And so if we can connect on those things and try not to focus on the differences as much, I think that's healthier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The world would be an awful boring place if we were all the same, right?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
And I think our world is moving into more of that accepting everyone, that accepting our differences and giving grace and compassion if that difference maybe triggers you or someone else, right? Like, because especially in behavior situations, if a child's having a meltdown or whatever, that's a trigger for the adults in the school, in the family.
Oh my God, totally is.
Yeah.
And I think it's really okay to say that and be like, you know what, your meltdown affects more than just you, right?
Yeah.
Your anxiety, your ADHD, your anything, whatever you're feeling affects the people near you too.
Yeah.
And so the more we can be accepting of it and have in our heads ways to say something back to, let's say, family members over the holidays, for instance, if kid is melting down or wants to wear headphones at the dinner table and mom-in-law is saying, oh, that's rude. Why do you let her do that? You know, you should parent better and you wouldn't have these issues, things like that.
Yeah.
Have a response that, I'm advocating for my child. I'm giving my kid what she needs right now.
That's right.
And that's okay.
Absolutely.
That's what we're here for, right? We need to advocate for our kids and be on their team and be on their side. And it's okay to put up some loving boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Like with the anxiety that's so prevalent, and especially in teens, right? What are I gave some great suggestions earlier about routines and knowing your child, and are there any specific ones for teens to help that to reduce the anxiety that they're feeling? Because I just feel like it's through the roof, right? And whether it be diagnosed as a disorder or, like you said, just everybody has anxiety at some point or another. That is a true human emotion. We all have it. So whether your child's diagnosed or not, like, what are some things for those teens? We love them.
I think the first thing is validating it, seeing it, and being like, I see you're really uptight or anxious or feeling worried. What could I do?
Yeah.
As opposed to, don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's
fine. Thanks. That doesn't actually help anybody.
Yeah, that's like telling somebody that's upset to calm down. Doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
But coming at them with some curiosity about their mood even, right? Like maybe they're not saying they're worried or anxious. They're just crabby and snotty and maybe rude. And being okay with that and saying, I don't have to join this party. I don't have to take on the argument. I can just be quiet and let them talk and get it all out. Sometimes they just need to vent. And sometimes if you come at it with curiosity and you ask, what can I do? Do you want me to listen or give you or help you? That's a big win because then they're like, oh, you're seeing me and hearing me and you want to know what I need. Like, how beautiful is that if you can give that to your kid? And if you can then give them the perspective of, let's say it's grades, because it's often grades, a grade is a grade. The grade doesn't define you. It doesn't mean because you didn't pass a test or you got a C or whatever your realm is that feels bad for you. It doesn't mean, it's not a mark on you. It means you didn't learn something, right? And for most of these things, that's what these are, right? It's like lagging skills. And so that's where that anxiety bubbles up because you think you're not doing it well enough, or you don't know how to do it, but you're not going to ask how to do it because you were taught how to do it and you've forgotten.
Yeah.
So I think things like grades in school, giving them that flexibility of being like, okay, this is
Yeah.
an assessment of where you are, not who you are.
That's right. And that's a huge differentiation that
Mm.
I think adults and kids alike don't really get.
No, we take everything on ourselves.
Yeah, that who we are as people, and I realized this in an elementary school classroom. We did an affirmations conversation where you hand around the talking stick and you have to say, I was teaching them what affirmations were, and I wanted to know where they were before I started the lesson, right? Of course, you always do that as a
Right.
teacher, see where your kids are. Damn. I passed the stick around, and I gave an example. I said, I want you to say I am, and then something positive about yourself, right?
Oh, really?
Wow. It was a class of 30, 8 and 9-year-olds.
Big
More than,
class at that age.
yeah, more than half of them didn't know what to say. And the ones that did share an affirmation, their affirmation was, I am good at art. I am good at soccer. It was all
Mm,
qualities
externally.
outside of themselves and not internally. And that hit me like a ton of bricks, Dana. I was like, wow. You
Yeah.
know, as parents, we love our kids and we're always blowing them up and we love them so much. But are we having the conversations about who they are as people, who they are on the inside, and asking them, what kind of a friend are you? I get good
Right.
end of the story after the hour-long lesson, and we read books and we brainstormed all these affirmations. Every kid easily wrote down 10 beautiful affirmations about themselves, but they needed that different perspective of lens of what happens outside of me really isn't
Mm,
who I
right.
am. And these emotions, this anxiety, this depression, this fear, it isn't who you are.
Mm,
It is an emotion that's flowing through you.
right. It's a piece. It's in the moment. And I think you really hit it. I think as parents, or whether parents or not, but
Yeah.
adults also, I have to say, I find that a hard one to do too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because we are
You know?
attaching ourselves, and I think that's the reason it happened with the kids is because we adults are doing that. "Oh, I
Right.
did well at work," or that's
Right.
but we don't often sit down and think, "I'm a good friend, and I'm
Yeah. And
funny," or
and honestly, I can see now, and as we're talking about this, there's also that feeling of you don't want to brag, right?
yeah,
So I think that was instilled in us when we were young.
yes.
So it is then hard to do that. And brag is a bad word because it has a judgment to it, and it shouldn't. Like, to say something good about yourself isn't bragging, it's acknowledging that you have something good in you or about you or whatever. And
Yeah.
I do think that as a society here in America, for sure, we don't do a great job of that.
Oh, no. My father
No.
always said, I'll never forget when I was young, because I was like one of those wild kids, and I remember my father saying, "Natalie, there's a fine line between confident and cocky."
Yeah,
And so I was taught, that was him telling me, "Damp her down, bud. You're too much for people.
you're
You
too
need to chill
much.
out and just go back into the," not like he ever
Mhm.
sent me to a corner, right? But
Right.
just tamp it down there, Nat. You're a little
Yeah.
too much for people, right?
Yeah. Don't get
And
cocky. Don't brag. Don't
yeah,
get too big for your britches.
yeah, right? But really what it is though is acknowledging that people's strengths.
Mhm.
Everybody has different strengths.
Yeah, and if you
And
can use those strengths in all situations, especially school, is
yeah,
like you can come at academics, and if somebody's struggling and you can come at them with something they're good at or that they're interested in and say, okay, if you don't like this math problem, but make it about tennis, how many times can you use a tennis ball or whatever?
yeah,
Like, oh, okay.
all of a sudden. And I
All of a
think
sudden you see it differently.
yeah. I think
Yeah,
the strengths are really highly connected to what people are good at. And that's one of the ways I'd love
absolutely.
to see the school system change is once kids have their main skills down, maybe by then my middle school, let them go explore what they love. I think
Right.
people would be
And
amazed to see what these kids do because they
yeah, I
all
have
have
one.
that sense of brilliance, right?
And I have a client right now, she's in college, and she in one class, in her math class, she you can't you don't have to go on to the next test until you've mastered. So it's all about mastering something before you move on. And I
Yeah.
think that's so much better than you've got to study and memorize, take the test, ace it, and then forget all about what you learned because you didn't learn it, you
Yeah.
just memorized it.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
love that concept. Okay, let's get people to understand you're actually trying to learn this. And once you understand it, you can move on to something else.
Yeah, exactly, because you have that built-out understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I think that just that same analogy can be applied to basically anything we do. In
Absolutely.
parenting, with all the different skills that we need to
Mm.
have as parents, there's no need, there's no shoulds. Take that.
But it makes your life easier
But if we build on our strengths, that's
if
one
you
of the
build
things
on
I
our
do
strength.
in my parent coaching is we do a strengths assessment. Where are your strengths as parents, and how can we utilize these and build on these to help you through these challenges that lie
Yeah.
ahead? And
Right.
having the kids know their strengths and challenges to build their strengths to again then help with the challenges,
Yes,
right? In
absolutely.
anything in life. And then once you master, I think it's about mastering what your strengths are and knowing, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Where
and then
they
you can
are.
play to them and you can enhance them, and you're right about being good at something is also gonna be what you like, right? Because we
Mhm.
get something from accomplishing something. So
Yeah,
telling someone you're good at something isn't where they're gonna get their confidence.
that's
It's
right.
trying things and succeeding. That's where you get both the resilience, the perseverance, and the confidence.
Yes.
And that I also think is super key for parents to be aware of it. It's not they like with anxiety, don't avoid everything that your child is anxious about because
Yeah.
then what you're saying to them is you're right to be anxious and you're reinforcing it. And on
Mm,
top of that, what they can hear, even though we're certainly not trying to say this, is you can't handle this.
yeah.
So I'll handle it for you or we'll avoid it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that just keeps it, what
Yeah,
you resist persists, right?
absolutely.
And I think that's really important for parents to keep in mind sometimes too, is that we're not doing them any favors by getting all the obstacles out of their way
No,
because
no,
we're just not. And it's a real disservice. They can't learn resilience or perseverance if they
I
don't fall
agree.
down, if they don't make mistakes, if they don't struggle.
Yeah.
And we just jump in to fix things, which of course we all want to fix things because we hate to see our kids struggle. It's
We
horrible.
do, we do. It's not a bad thing, parents, we've all done it. But the long-term
And
effects are not building those skills that we want our kids to have ultimately. We
right.
want them to be resilient. We want them to have the confidence to take on challenges and get back up, dust
Yep.
themselves off, and as we say, put on the big girl panties and keep going. So I'm really glad you made that point because this is such a difficult thing that parents are going through with kids that have ADHD and
It is.
anxiety. And it's so important to remember you can't take everything, all the obstacles out of their way, and you can't avoid every single situation because it isn't in the long run doing a disservice, and even in the short term.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're trying to build an adult, right? You're trying
Yeah,
to grow an
that's our
adult
job.
and independence. And if I know that parents, all parents, like most parents, it's a struggle to figure out where do you give that autonomy and independence and when you just do things yourselves because it's faster and easier and all the
Yeah.
things. How far do you let your kid fail or struggle before you step in? Are you supporting them or are you taking it over for them? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are such great points, Dana. I think our conversation today is going to be so helpful for parents.
I hope
And
so.
and I hope they know that we're going to talk about where everybody can find you. But first, I have a couple of little questions that I'm asking all my guests.
Okay.
They're deep, but I just love the reactions and the amazing answers I've been getting so far.
Uh-oh.
So don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. So, my first question is, what is your definition of a fulfilled life?
Ooh,
I know. Everybody does that.
I love that. Okay. A fulfilled life for me or fulfilled life in general?
However
Whatever
you
you
wanna
want.
answer, whatever comes up for you. That's the whole idea of the question is whatever comes up for you, right?
Okay. A fulfilled life for me is one where you have joy,
Mm,
you have love, you, for me, family, because I love my family.
yeah.
And that you feel confident and accomplished. So if you have something you like and enjoy, an hobby or a work or whatever, that you're able to
Yeah.
pursue that and feel good about that.
Yeah. I love that. That's an
Mhm.
important piece, right? That feeling, that
Yeah.
sense of purpose and enjoying what it
Yes.
is you do, whether it is your job or it's a hobby or it's a side hustle that you're working toward, whatever it
Right.
is, right?
Whatever.
Something you enjoy. I often say, I don't care if it's underwater basket weaving or whatever
Yeah.
it
Just have a
is.
passion.
Yeah.
Have a passion, have joy,
Yeah. And love and
be in
family.
nature, love, all those things.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So how will you know you did a good job raising your children?
Oh, that's you just see if they can adult,
Yeah.
see them taking over their lives and being confident, knowing who they are so that they can make their own choices and stick with them and not feel, if they're teenagers, that they're not feel pressured into things from their friends. That they know their values, they know who they are,
Yes.
and they're willing to go out there and go after their dreams and be good
Yeah.
friends
Yeah.
and caring citizens of the world.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Feel the
Like
same
for
for
me, when
sure.
I watch my kids thrive,
Yeah.
everything,
I
mic
know.
drop, it's all I need in life is watching my kids thrive.
Yeah,
The best.
absolutely. Same. It is. My face hurts thinking about
Yeah.
just the smiling, seeing them grow and flourish. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So we all have challenging times, as we know, and we've
Mhm.
talked about. So what's something that you tell yourself during those challenging times?
I think I just say to myself, I've got a couple things. One is follow it through to the end in your mind to see if you're in that feeling of worst case, right?
Yeah.
Instead of avoiding that, take it all the way to the worst case scenario and like, how bad is that? If that actually happens, are you going to die?
Yeah.
No.
Exactly.
I've gotten through so many things. I think you just, and when you have that resilience, you've got that perseverance. It's okay, this sucks.
Yeah.
And I have to process it because it's not, I can't just shut it away, which is
That's
one
right.
of the first things you know, my go to is to shut down a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I know that now. And I'm okay, you just got to feel it
Mm-hmm.
and keep going because it's not going to kill you.
That's
So
right.
you can get through anything.
That's so true. Absolutely. Absolutely. And just acknowledging that worst case scenario and then realizing
You can do that.
one, it's not gonna kill you, and then where's
Well,
the and then what in
likely is it
5
doesn't happen.
years or in 10 years, like, where's this situation gonna be? It
Right.
really is something to look at. I love that. So lastly, where can people find you, Miss Dana?
Oh,
We're gonna have all the links in the description, so you don't have to
I'm
yeah, then you just generally say
TikTok,
no.
TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and generally my handle is parent in real life. And my website
Yeah,
is parentinginreallife.org, all one word.
awesome. It'll be in the description. So,
Awesome.
well, people can reach out if you would like some specific and lovely coaching from Miss Dana with if your children are teens, young adults with ADHD, anxiety. Dana's your girl.
Any of it. Come to me.
Yes.
Let me share.
Yes. And through the experience, like most of us are in this work of parenting coaching because we didn't have an ideal situation. So we have that understanding and care and compassion for what people are going through, right? We're not here because we were perfect parents. That's because that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, it's that self-compassion. I will say that too. I didn't say that
Yeah.
today. Give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
And if you wouldn't say it to your best friend, don't say it to yourself.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. We have to
You
take
know?
care of it. Love ourselves first.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
We're all human. We all make mistakes.
Yeah. Exactly. Thank you so much for being here, Miss Dana.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun.
I know. So I'm sure we'll chat again. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. So glad you're still here. You do not suck as a parent. But I want you to know about something that we've created. The coaches and the experts that you see in this show, we've gotten together and we've created a community. It's called the Powerful Parenting Collective, where you as a parent can enter our group and have access to many of the experts that you see on the show, to private message them, to have a quick little video chat before you decide to hire them to help you in your parenting journey. Or maybe you decide not to do that. I want you to think about a community that is supportive, that will have events for you, free workshops, free information, and a place where you can really connect with the different experts that you've seen on this show. So click the link below and join us. Basically, think of it like a shopping mall for parents. We hope to see you there.